This book is it's a part of my PhD, which I conducted from 2009, and I graduated in 2014 from the School of Oriental and African Studies at University of London. And it's been a long process for me, long process of growing up and learning a lot about the people. I learned a lot about myself, about the people of the region, of this place I called home, of the different hills that we, all of us, call home. The main motivation for me to do this was to identify and to think our place in the world. This book, in a very simple way, it's about the politics of being a Nepali in the Eastern Himalayas. So for me, being half Nepali, my mom is half Lepcha and half Bhutia. So for me, being a Nepali, what does it mean? And there's so much politics around it. So how do I make sense of myself? It was actually a very, very personal project in the sense that I wanted to know where we stood, we see our politics around being Nepali all around us, and I wanted to understand that. So that was one of the prime motivations. And the other one was also to try and break the stereotypes and myths around the region, around Sikkim, Darjeeling, and Nepal, the way we've been represented in public spaces and in academia. I wanted to move, especially for Sikkim and Darjeeling, I wanted to move beyond just being seen as this really romantic place, just, with red pandas and orchids and prayer flags. I mean, of course, that's a very important part of who we are, but our politics, our agency was not being studied, I suppose. So for me, that was also sort of like a personal challenge and a motive to actually undertake this study. And I hope I have been able to do justice to what I think is going on in this region. This PhD took me to many, many places. It really pushed my own physical boundaries, having to walk so much. So having to walk in the hills and having to go to so many different places that I never thought I'd go, like in the villages of East Nepal, in the tea plantations, villages of West Sikkim, and having to drink heaps of tongba, all these sorts of things. These were really wonderful experiences for me. And hopefully it all comes up, it reflects that in this book. So those were the sort of ideas behind the book. I really wanted to write about the people and the place and our politics. So although the book is about being Nepali and the politics of being Nepali, but I think it talks at a very deeper level of the people and the region. So yes, it is about the Nepalis, but it is about the place and the people, and it is about trying to break those barriers. And yes, it is an academic exercise, but I hope everybody reads it, and I hope it's accessible to everybody. The way we understand politics, we think politics is just about politicians, it's about dadas, gundas, we think it's about just vote banks and things like that. But I think what my research does is actually it tells us about politics in very obvious places. It's about the new form of politics in the Eastern Himalayas. And this is a very, very exciting phase for us. When I started my own research was that ethnic politics that we see, the politics around identity, is a bad thing, I thought. That it's something very negative. But as I continued with my research, it's actually a very, very powerful phenomenon that we see going around. So the book is about the new forms of politics that we see in the Eastern Himalayas. It's about how we use our ethnic identity in democratic spaces, right? So this is a new form of politics where all are invited. It's a very inclusive form of politics because without the whole set of people like Dhami, Chakri, without the ethnic dressmakers, the linguists, ethnic politics would not be possible. The kind of politics that we see is where everybody is trying to assert their own cultural identity. And one of the reasons of trying to understand this was also why is it becoming so popular now? So the book takes an approach of not just saying that, hey, look, this is what, people are discovering their identity, the people are discovering their clothes, their ornaments, languages, etc. But it's not just about that. It goes beyond that and it says, what are the factors? So it's an inclusive form of politics where we have a whole range of people who can now be a part of what we call democratic practices. And I think it's really, really interesting. It gives voice and power to a different set of people. So politics now just is not about the neta. It's not just about the leader, it's about the grassroots. It's about the people, it's about the common man, and how we can make it possible, and how this has led to a very sort of an inclusive democracy where we claim to be practicing democracy. How functional it is, I think it's open to discussion. But even in this form of democracy, it's playing a fundamental role of making it very inclusive. And we see this in Darjeeling, we see this in Nepal, although I focus only on East Nepal, but we see this in Nepal, and we see obviously in Gangtok. It's just in our face. As I said, this is a new form of politics, and that's what my book talks about. I think it's relevant because as a political process, democracy has been introduced very recently to us. And if you look at our political history, we've undergone like feudal, despotic systems, and suddenly we've been given with the right to vote, the right to participate in collective action, and all of these sorts of things. So the book shows us that people can participate in different ways, and this is made possible through ethnic politics. Of course, it's a different thing altogether. Who benefits from this politics? Who actually benefits from reservations? But yeah, these are the things that my book talks about, and I really hope that a lot of people read it. It's not available in India as of now, but it'll be available and be free to download in a few months' time from the publishers. And I've put on a draft version of the book on my academia page. And if anyone wants it, if they can't access it through that, I'm more than happy to just email it to you. And that's that. So I hope a lot of people read it. I mean, this is for the people here. I'm a product of this place. I'm a product of these hills. I'm a product of DNA. I'm from here. I hope students read it. And I would really like to know what you think about it. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'm sure we can take this conversation forward. Thank you very much once again.